get the wrong idea of us. People get the wrong idea of Boston. When I'm on the road, they go, "Oh, we love that show, Cheers. And we really think St. Elsewhere is great. Is Boston like that?" And I go, "Not at all. Did you see the Boston Strangler? That's Boston."
From 1978 to 1988, some of the country's funniest and most provocative comedians came out of Boston.
Thank you very much. My name is Kevin Meaney. God, my eye!
And some of the wildest ones never even left.
I told my wife, no life insurance. When I die, it's going to be a sad day for fucking everybody.
Together, every one of these comics helped to ignite the biggest stand-up explosion ever.
Comedy has become a thriving business as club owners fill their rooms to capacity weekend after weekend.
It began with around 24 clubs scattered across the country, and at the peak ballooned to over 450 full-time rooms nationwide.
All of a sudden, there are more places than anywhere and any time in the history of the country. The comedy club business has become a major industry in the United States.
Thousands of comics could play 5 shows a night, 6 nights a week, making 6 figures annually, cash, and I was one of them. My name is Fran Solomita.
Not the most macho name for a guy. I got picked on all my life. You know, Franny Francis, you are a loser. Of course, my brother Barbara really has problems.
After starting with my brother, I went on to do thousands of shows across the country. Been on television countless times.
Fran Solomita from Boston.
And have essentially spent half my life making people laugh. The good part? I've had an amazing journey. The bad part? You have no idea who I am. Well, I'm the guy who's going to share this story with you about the Boston comedy scene, along with the unique group of characters who started it all.
I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you a story about my town. I'm gonna tell you a big bad story, baby. A story about my town. Yeah, we're down by the river. Down by the banks of the River Charles. That's what's happening, baby. Well, that love you walked up. Ooh, I still, you're my home. You're my home, sweet home.
And I had a loan from my bank. Now, in the room, if there are any banking people in the banking industry, I don't mean to offend you directly or indirectly, but go fuck yourself. I had a loan. Yeah. They sent me this threatening letter. "We have not received your final payment." And I wrote them back. I said, "Yes, you have."
Just as we began making this film, we learned that Barry Crimmins, one of the key players in the scene, got sick, and a benefit concert was organized to help him.
There's some of the people lining up to go in.
Many of the guys returned home for the first time in 15 years, and thousands of fans showed up to share in what was sure to be an unforgettable reunion.
Hey, who are you here to see?
I'm here to see everybody.
See Mike McDonald,
Jimmy Tingle,
Don Galvin.
DJ Hazard,
Clarke.
all the Cambers guys.
I just want to laugh my ass off. That's why I'm here.
Gonna be a good night.
We'll see more of this reunion a little later, but first let me take you back to the beginning of this grassroots movement that was born out of the dust and evolved into a wildly creative community, then was blown apart by excess, success, clashing egos, even death threats. All in the name of stand-up comedy.
That was when it was really comedy was comedy. I do believe that the ones that came before were probably more of the true believers because there was no payoff when you really started back then except Carson. Maybe that was your thing.
You had to seek out comedy at that point. It was like a hip new thing. There was no comedy clubs in town. There were a couple of comedy clubs in New York. There's the Improv, and then if you went to LA, those were the only 2 scenes that had anything really happening.
There was something about this scene that I knew right away that something was going on. I didn't know what it was, but it just had this incredible energy behind it.
The people who were there wanted to see comedy and wanted to be entertained. It was new. It was, hey, these guys are going to tell some I don't even know what this is going to be. Let's go down there and see this.
All of these guys liked telling jokes and liked the mechanics of jokes and loved the way jokes sounded and liked getting laughs and liked being in front of people. And so all the class clowns from everywhere just came together in a group.
I broke a few rules driving. Next thing I know, the police pulled me over. What's the story, pal? Yeah. Why'd you just run that red light? And he said, I didn't see you all of a sudden. What are you, a wise guy? You got a license? Well, of course I have a license. I show him the license. He looks at the license, looks at me. Looks at the license, looks at me. Well, this doesn't look like you. You're right, it's not me. You got the wrong guy.
Audiences loved it. Did you hear them laugh? You hear 200 people in a room laugh? It was new, it was fresh. You're not gonna believe this. We went and we saw these comedians, and one of them said, fuck, every other word.
So everybody can fucking hear the fucking tapes and fucking hear the fucking kind of fucking cocksucking language I use.
And no one threw him out. He had the mic, you know? And they made us laugh.
At 350 years old, Boston is one of the oldest big cities in America. And while most associate it with liberal politics and higher education, the majority of this town is populated with tough, hard-working, hard-drinking Irish. Proud, loud, local, and loyal. With legendary sports teams that make grown men cry on an annual basis.
It gets through Buckner's legs, and the Mets win it!
Throw in the shadow of New York City, and you've got a full-fledged metropolis with a first-rate inferiority complex.
Going to the Boston Herald, I talked to Dean Johnson. He's the entertainment critic who covered comedy for a number of years.
This was a local, kind of like blue-collar comedy, but it was blue-collar comedy with an attitude by guys that had been around. It wasn't just dirty jokes, but these were guys who had hard, fast sort of style. And it was something that blossomed locally. These weren't imports that came in and just drew together because of the comedy scene here. These were all locals. They were townies. It was sort of a jock mentality set in a comedy setting.
So I stopped drinking about 2 years ago because I got into a car accident. I hit a lake. I thought the road seemed awfully slick. Trout went by the windshield. I thought, boy, they've had some rain here. The cop said, I love cops. The cop said to me, "You been drinking?" I said, "How many sober people do you know of?" So I meant the fucking lakes. Well, I ran out of gas. I think with a full tank I could have made it across.
I remember coming off stage and having people hand me a note telling me how to make a bit better that I'd done. And it took me forever to realize that in other cities, they would just take your bit and add what they thought was good to it and call it their own.
Boston was a great place to get started because when I first got there, if people thought you were being derivative of other comedians, you wouldn't get on stage. It wasn't even like I had anything to say. I just wanted people to acknowledge my existence, you know, and I really didn't care if you liked me or hated me, you know. My only goal was that I fucked up your head enough that you were thinking about me at work. So it was a place where, you know, being unique and an individual is really, really important. You know what I mean? That's why you have Steve Wright and like Poundstone and just all these different kinds of acts.
I have no money. I don't even have a savings account because I don't know my mom's maiden name. And apparently that's key to the whole thing right there. I go in every few weeks and guess. I never realized, I feel stupid now, I never realized, A, that Johnny Carson wasn't making up what he said as he went along. B, that someone else wrote it. I always thought that the guy was just talking. It seems sort of stupid in retrospect, but I was young when I started, keep that in mind. And I didn't know anything about stand-up comedy. I'd always wanted to be like Carol Burnett. So I didn't have an act when I went to do my audition. I just sort of stammered for a long time. And therefore was, you know, ignored.
It was in the spring of 1978 that the first comedy club opened in Boston.
Comedy Kitchen started with about a $50 budget. Just one little ad in the Boston Phoenix,
and some flyers that we made up and put around every street corner in downtown Boston.
We didn't really think, and this sounds really stupid, but we never really thought we'd go beyond May. We put every Wednesday in May. We didn't think that's going to be June, July, whatever. We just, Paul and I said, if it's going to suck, it's going to suck.
I was part of a team that was half funny. I wasn't the funny half. And those who can do, and those who can't, open comedy clubs.
By about the third week, the Boston Globe came in, the Boston Phoenix, the Herald, 2 TV stations. It became explosive. I mean, there wasn't, the first 2 months we existed, there wasn't an empty seat ever.
That's what did it, the audiences and word of mouth, and clubs were turning people away.
What I liked about it was that there was no show business there. There was no managers, there was no agents, there was no producers, there was no auditions, there was nothing. It was like being on an island, and the only thing there was trying to make the audience laugh.
It wasn't like we were trying to fit into any kind of slot or anybody else's idea of what humor should be. We were just doing what came naturally.
It was a bunch of guys getting together, doing a show, and you got paid. And you know, you get like 15 or 20 bucks, and it was like, man, I used to tell jokes at lunch for free, and now I'm getting paid.
I think the isolation was excellent because no one knew what they were doing. There was no one there to no one could give you advice because there was no one there to give you advice.
My friend George sent me a postcard. It was a satellite picture of the entire Earth. On the back he wrote, "Wish you were here."
Soon after the connection opened, a rivalry began when Barry Crimmins, a comic from upstate New York, moved to town and started the most infamous comedy club Boston would ever see, in, of all places, a Chinese restaurant called the Ding Ho.
Those of you who know me know I'm kind of a health nut.
The first time I ever met him, he walked into a party full of Red Sox fans and started arguments about the Yankees and the Red Sox, and the first thing I said to myself was, who is this asshole?
Barry Crimmins always gave me the greatest intro, too. Now, this next comedian's a woman, and I don't want to make a big deal about it. She's a comic, she's funny, and she's just, you know, I want you to give her the same respect that you would give any man who walked on stage. So it is now my pleasure to introduce the nicest piece of ass I've seen all my life.
Crimmins was always like a big influence, and always someone I was afraid of and intimidated of. I always wanted his approval, still do.
Jimmy Carter? What, if I don't like Reagan, I have to like, therefore it follows I like Carter. Fuck you. You're like a college student, aren't you? The college students these days are real hip. I support the president. I've got a computer in my dorm. I've never gotten laid. I got drunk once. I'm pretty sure the beer was bad. Fuck you. Fuck your family.
As gruff as he acted, he would still cut a lot of people a lot of slack repeatedly. There would be some people that were terrible, and he would, like, tell them what they might need to do to become a comedian, or he'd still give them a shot on stage, you know.
Anyone who's ever going to break out of Boston owes an awful lot to this guy. One of my great friends, Mr. Barry Crimmins. Let's bring him on up.
My mother died in 1982. I was booked at the Ding Ho. I couldn't do the shows. Barry paid me anyway. That never has happened. I've been doing shows since 17 years, every weekend since. That has never happened since.
I feel sorry for those of you watching this tape, because I'm like a tired guy, and usually I'm a lot more vibrant, but I have been up since I was in Vermont yesterday, because sometimes business and personal obligations go a little too far. But I'm funny, and you should come see me do comedy sometime.
I was homeless when I started the Ding Ho. You know, I was a homeless person when I first walked in there. You know, I was camping out in a construction site in Cambridge. But I wanted to be a comedian. And I knew if I went and did some straight job, I wouldn't have time to concentrate on being a comedian the way I wanted to.
Where these guys would be paying you 20 bucks, Barry said, okay, come on back to the Ding Ho, do a set, I'll pay you 50 bucks. Automatically, our pay more than doubled, hitting the room, which forced the Comedy Connection to up the pay.
Well, Barry's going to pay me more to do this, all right, we'll pay you more. Or Barry's going to pay me more again, all right, you can stay out late and you can have candy, all right?
If you want something done the way you like it to be done, then you should do it yourself. Not necessarily right, but the way you like it to be done.
The Connection was more of a business, the Ding was a clubhouse. The Comedy Connection's like, no, we have to give you this and make you pay taxes because we have to exist. And the dingo was like, I'm going to give you cash and who even cares? Keep records, we don't want to keep records. And that was a big part of it. It's like, there was definitely people playing us off each other, I
knew what it took to walk out on the stage and do stand-up. And I mean, you really need to be raked into a rather neat pile before you go out there and do that, right? Or most people do, So they don't need to be sniped at or mistreated or whatever. I wanted to create a sort of a cringe-free environment.
That's how I really tried to set this place up, as a place where comedians would like to come work. Because if the comedians like the place, they're the best salesmen in the world. Hold on a second. Watch the kind of stuff I can do here.
Listen, I'm sick of listening to you yell. I'm making a TV show here, okay? And you're yelling. Just get out. I don't like you. I own this place. Get out.
Excuse me, if you've got a wide angle on this, this could be worth some money.
I'll handle it. Sir, bye. You're out.
We're going to need a pretty large guy. You know how much money I spent on finding a midget to raise hell in the background?
On a given night at the Ding Ho, you might have a table from Harvard University, a table of my friends, a table from MIT. Everybody. It's a very cosmopolitan area.
What I remember about the Ding Ho shows was how great the audiences were, but how raucous it was around the edges, and how it was like crowd control.
And that place was small enough and weird enough with the Chinese restaurant in the back, and to be like quirky enough that you felt really at home there.
The Ding Ho was a very inspiring place where we could try anything.
Some lizard waiting for a meal.
We could do anything. There was huge crowds. There were people hanging from the rafters, waiting to see who was going to be on the show that night, and it really didn't matter because people were going to do all kinds of bizarre things.
But what became the most notorious night of the week at the Ding Ho was an open mic hosted by one Lenny Clarke. It would be impossible to tell the full story of Boston comedy without him. And once you see Lenny perform, you may love him, you may hate him, but you'll never forget him.
Lenny's Wednesday night at the Ding Ho, which was truly a freak show.
The club was in Cambridge, and Lenny was Cambridge, so it couldn't have happened without him.
There'd be a guy, Mr. My Way, remember him? And he'd have a woman come out of the audience, and she'd bite his elbow, and he'd lift her up by her teeth, I swear to God. And then, Lenny would come on and go, Mr. My Way, and get into a fight with a guy over here and yell at somebody over here and talk about lesbians and get them angry because they're outside protesting, and then bring you up by going, hey, and next guy, what's your name again? All right, here he is. So it's like going to war.
My show is wild. It's not a passive show. I'm a high-pressure, high-powered, high-energy comic, and if you're not ready to laugh, I'm going to make you more miserable than you were when you got up this morning.
And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. Really, you're going to have fun, too. Even if I have to run through this room with a fucking chainsaw, you're going to have fun.
The nights that Lenny hosted, he would sit on the side of the stage and just root you on. And I remember being so scared. It was like my third time on stage, and turned to look at Lenny, and he's like, you're doing great, keep going. And then if the crowd didn't give it to the comic, he'd tell off the audience. And that's support.
I'd be on stage and I'd look over and he'd be like, showing me his ass off to the side of the stage, just to try to throw me.
He had a joy to him. I mean, Lenny had something that audiences just really bonded with. And he'd have people completely in the aisles.
Because I'm an honest man. I think if I open up to you, you'll like me a bit more. And yes, I have jerked off. There, I said it. Film, tape, everything. And no other man has ever done that, right? No. See, and I'm not proud of it. But if they ever put it in the Olympics, I'm the guy to beat.
You could actually watch Lenny say things that you would never think, oh, that's a good thing to say, or I'm on that side. Yes, and you would hear Lenny say the most absurd, hateful, nasty things, and you'd almost agree with him. He'd find some kind of weird thing in your mind to hook into you, where you'd go, and I realized that's how Hitler got started. And because Lenny has a little bit of Hitler in him. He's able to lead people in the wrong direction in many cases.
In high school, it would take me weeks, months, just to get up the nerve to ask a pretty girl out. I'd see her in the cafeteria every day, and I'd plan how I was going to get to meet her. And then one day I'd get the nerve, and I'd see her, and I'd walk up to her, and she'd be with some friends. I'd say, "Excuse me, would you go out with me?" And she'd go, "No, Lenny, I'll never go out with you." And I'd be crushed. And then I'd follow that girl home and fuck a dog right on the front lawn. They never went out with me, but they always remembered my face. Oh, God. Oh, God, I'm so tired. Oh, no, it's got to be me or them. One of us sucks.
It's you. It's always you.
Oh, God, I hate it when it's like this.
Gotta do some camera shot.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I'll go right into that thing. The camera. I'm not afraid of you, camera. 300 people out there, maybe. But you, I could take a hammer and smash your fucking lens in your head.
13 people out there. Tell us.
I did his show with The Connection, and I didn't like him at all. I thought he was just some big windbag asshole, oh, geez, you're great. Do my show anytime. I'm going, who's this guy? And I was in between shows, and I walked out, and there was Lenny. He had a beer in one hand and a few other sundries, but he was throwing bricks through the windows of the construction trailer. And he went, "Here, take this and take one of these and throw it to there." And I went, "Oh, yeah, this is a guy I could hang out with."
Given the undeniable impact he had made, we were psyched to once again get the full Lenny Clarke experience in the here and the now.
Lenny did comedy the way that a lot of people as civilians think comedians do it. He would literally make it up right there on the spot. The other thing he used to do that I've never seen anybody else do, he would dig a hole for himself and have the audience fucking hating him, and then turn it around and they loved him again.
Give a nice warm welcome to Lenny Clarke!
People talk about, some new guys, I love when someone always got energy. Energy, Jesus, I've been doing this 23 years, I got more energy than that. Back then I was like a live wire and they were a puddle of water. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I had no idea I didn't know what I was doing. There were no rules.
What is it with you guys? What the fuck is it with you? What is it? Yep. What, do you go to movies and go, "Hey, yeah, this is where E.T. gets boned up the ass"? You don't understand, Rocco. You're being a fucking dickhead. You got a drink. We tried to make friends. I could have you see what the people think. Would you like to see what they think? Because when I count to 3, I want you to show Rocco here how we feel about talking through the whole show. I'm going to count to 3, and whether you've ever sworn in your life or not, it doesn't matter. When I count to 3, I want you to turn and point and say, "Shut the fuck up." Would you do that? Yep. 1, 2, 3. Shut the fuck up!
In this town, he became one of the celebs pretty early on because we're hungry for our celebs. We have to create our own. Lenny was very much one of them and continues to be.
So with all the ruckus Lenny was stirring up, it was time for a Boston TV station to take the risk and put him on the air.
Hi, I'm Lenny Clarke, and I've just been given a TV show on TV 38 every Friday night at 11:30. I'm a wonderful guy, and I hope you'll tune in and watch the show.
Could have done better than that myself.
You could never have done better.
I certainly
You're
can.
dreaming. You're old.
What?
You're old.
Lenny. Lenny Clarke, he wants to be rich and famous, but in reality, as you can see, he's just an ignoramus.
This is my friend Bobby.
So Lenny took his first TV opportunity and made an effort to share the spotlight with as many of the comics as he could.
And now, the black weather.
Despite their choice of material.
And if you don't like it, that stuff!
As if we weren't spending enough time together at the clubs, a bunch of the guys actually lived together, in a place where the party could continue long after the festivities at the clubs were over. This place was affectionately referred to as the Barracks.
What
you saw an Animal House is what the barracks was. But drugs, gambling, alcohol, prostitution. You know, the girls that came up from Connecticut. Remember the Connecticut girls?
I was working for Balloons over Boston at the time, delivering bouquets of balloons, so my contribution was a helium tank, and people would just suck helium and talk in a funny voice. It got pretty ugly. I think the tank ended up getting thrown through the window.
Sitting at the barracks, right, chomping a line, and going, and hearing, I look up, there's two fucking patrol. I'm going, oh shit! Lenny goes, don't worry, they're friends. I went, oh, are you shit? He goes, no, come on. Two patrolmen come in. Want to go for a ride in the paddy wagon? Yeah! We're riding around Cambridge in the paddy wagon. This is so cool.
It was a halfway house for any wayward comic. And the thing was, you didn't have to be in a clique. You know, you were from out of town. You needed a place to stay, you know, and you were comics would come here to see what the Boston Legend was all about. And it was a great camaraderie.
Get out! Get out! Enough is enough! Get out! What do I have to stab you? Get out!
There's an entire generation of young comedians eagerly waiting to tell you what a beautiful audience you've been. For in the world of entertainment, laughter has become a much sought-after commodity.
I'm so serious. Last night I went to a birthday party and this girl brought a cake and a cheesecake, and the other girls that lived in the apartment, I swear to God, all night long, you're taking that cake with you when you go. That cake's not staying in this house. Like, it's this evil hope diamond, nuclear, horrifying, cursed thing. The cake is not staying in this house. She's alone in the house with the cake. It's in the house. Don't go upstairs.
If I wasn't doing it, I was watching it. I would go and watch. I would be in stand-up comedy clubs every single night and talking about it, eating it, sleeping it, drinking it, dreaming it. Everything. My whole life was geared towards being a successful stand-up comedian.
Then, in July of 1982, just when the insular yet vital club scene was white hot, the floodgates opened when the executive producer of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson found his way into the Ding Ho.
There was an article about Irish comedians in Boston. There was Cremens.
Yeah, in the LA Times. Someone wrote about this weird comedy club Chinese restaurant in Cambridge.
And when Sally came to Boston, he's the producer of The Tonight Show, to look at schools for his kid going to college. So while he was in town, he called the Ding Ho and wanted to take a look at a few guys.
I called a few weeks in advance and said, can somebody there arrange an audition and call in as many people as you want, and I want to see them all.
As far as I was concerned, the show business part of it was one sentence. Someday I hope to get on television. But there was no, there was no logic of even how to get onto television.
No
it was
roadmap.
just a sentence. It was a dream.
There were some people that probably could envision a career at this or get into national television or making films. You know, Barry, Lenny, those people.
I'd not seen anything like Ding Ho before. It was the most colorful, lively atmosphere. That it was so different. And all the guys that came on were good, talented people.
I'm sure people have told that story about Lenny Clarke, you know? He used to do this bit, Johnny Carson can suck my cock! And he would do this, you know, he would do this bit all the time, you know? On the same night, The Tonight Show came in. Lenny had a couple of drinks in him, and he goes up and he does that bit.
When we left the club, all the guys were waiting for me in the parking lot, all wanting to know how they did. And it was a real mob scene. It was very strange. And isn't it odd that the one I loved the most was the one that didn't show up?
It was mind-boggling because it was the dream. It was like, that's the dream since 14 years old. And here's like 26 years old and the phone rings. And it was just unbelievable.
Stephen was just dumbstruck. I mean, he couldn't believe any of it. He was just completely in a daze, more than he normally is in a daze.
That thing from 2 weeks ago, the guy, 8 minutes, that's all? Yeah, I hung up, I called everyone I knew, and no one was home. And I was like, oh my God.
And most of the people, I think, were really blown away by the fact that one of our own was going to actually be on national television. So, and at the time, there wasn't cable, and it was a big deal to get on The Tonight Show. And when Steve Wright went on, we were on the back room, and there was probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 of us crowded around. You know, you had the Chinese cooks come out of the kitchen, the waitresses, you know, all around.
It's a Friday night. We brought TVs in. We put them on stage. We stopped the show. The entire audience, we mic'd it. The whole audience sat there watching probably a 20-inch screen, 200 people leaning over, trying to get in and watching this.
And on that night, I was booked at The Connection. And when Paul turned the TV on, I sat at the foot of the stage with my brother and sister. Nobody had any idea how much our little world was about to change from that point on.
Thank you, Tom. We're back. Okay. I'm always glad to introduce a new comedian, especially on Friday nights, because Friday night audiences are usually up. This young man is from Boston. It's his first appearance on national television, and I think you're going to find him a little different. Would you welcome Stephen Wright?
Thanks. I had a dream that all the babies prevented by the pill showed up. They were mad. I was cesarean born. Can't really tell. Although, whenever I leave a house, I go out through the window. I never looked in the camera or anything. I tried to play to those 500 people. And it came out and they started laughing just like in the club, and they kept going and they kept laughing. And then I heard Johnny laugh. I heard him. He's 30 feet over to the side, and oh my God, Johnny Carson's laughing. It's something I thought of. It's unbelievable. About 4 years ago, no, it was yesterday. I couldn't sleep, so I got up. Then I got hungry, so I went down to the store that I know is open 24 hours. When I got down there was a guy outside locking it up. He said, "Sorry, we're closed." I said, "What do you mean you're closed? The sign says open 24 hours. He said, "Not in a row."
With an entire city holding its breath, everyone knew something remarkable was happening. Then another surprise. In a rare move, Johnny Carson waved Stephen over to the couch, which was considered the highest honor any comedian could receive.
Good to see you, Stephen.
How's it going?
Wonderful. Did they just let you out for this evening?
Yeah, I have an hour left.
That's wonderfully inventive stuff.
Thanks.
Really? Was this your first time on national television?
On national television, yes.
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
What? I'm in shock.
Did it go the way you thought it would go?
Yeah, yep. Yeah.
Not a lot of comedians don't come out of Boston.
No, there's a lot of good ones there, and they're with me right now in my head. Changed my entire experience as a human being on this planet. From him going in that club, from him having children who are going to go into college. I mean, what if his kids didn't want to go to college? And it's a fluke festival. It's a chain reaction.
Fluke festival? think that was like the beginning of thinking, hey, wait a minute. What the fuck, you know, you're at, because he was at the Ding Ho like on a Tuesday when the guy came to see him, you know, and then it was all of a sudden, it was overnight. It was huge. And I think everybody kind of went, what the fuck? There's a big future in this thing, or a possibility of something.
Baseball's not my favorite sport. I'm not even going to play it this year. It's too depressing. I'm going to play softball instead. Softball's better than baseball anyways. Softball's just baseball with beer. That's why they make the ball so big so you can see it when you're shit-faced.
The Showtime cable network came to Boston tonight in search of the hub's best and brightest comedians.
With the comedy scene rapidly expanding and no way to predict who was going to be plucked out for stardom next, there was certainly no shortage of rooms to keep everyone working constantly.
Comedy was the cover of every major publication in the city at the same time. Dance clubs closed. I mean, people went out of business when they had nightclubs because the focus switched to comedy.
How macho can a movie be? Stallone directing Travolta. All right. Well, what I want you to do here is I want you to talk stupid, all right? You're going to talk stupid. Hey, what, I'm trying to talk stupid. I can't talk any more stupid.
We're on Warrington Street now. This used to be Comedy Row. Right over there was Joker's. Behind you, the Charles Playhouse there where Blue Man Group is playing, was the Comedy Connection, the original one. And behind me where we just were is Nick's Comedy Stop. And then over in that building, between these two buildings right there, there was another comedy club. So at one point there were 4 comedy clubs within about 150 yards of each other.
The clubs were open 7 nights a week in the city, and you had outside clubs virtually every night of the week. You could do 9, 10 shows a week. I mean, there were comics who did 5 shows on a Friday night.
How many was the most shows you ever did in a night?
9, and I'll explain it to you. 9. I started at Nick's. I've got Trigger Burke and an 8-ball and a cab. And
wait, translate.
Trigger Burke was the Crazy Eddie Burke who used to drive the taxi.
Okay.
I said, okay, I'm hiring you for the night. Get an 8-ball. He gets an 8-ball, and he goes, we pull up in front of Nick's. I said, wait here. I go on stage, I open Nick's, get off the stage, get in the cab, get the ball, start working. Go to Stitches. I do the second set at opening show of Stitches. Then I go to Sam's and close Sam's opening show. Then I stay there, I open Sam's second show, go to Stitches, close the, do the middle of the set in the second show, close the second show at Nick's, open Nick's, go to play it against Sam's, and finish the night at Stitches where everyone would meet and we would party with the Eurotrash and drink until we passed out. That was so 9 shows in one night.
What would you make after a night like that?
Couple grand that I know of, and I mean, and I would, yeah, that I remember, and then free drugs, wild sex, and all the booze you could drink. And he would provide me with drugs of all sorts. This man has had 5 passes. No, it's okay. You'll be dead. You're gonna die soon. It's okay. Your kids are alive. Because you are. When you swear, get the fuck out of here.
2, 1, 2.
There would be about 10 clubs in the city, Boston and Cambridge, and then about 25 in the outskirts of the city, all over New England. Basically, what you'd have is about 75 comics dispatched out into these different locations.
I learned more in the front seat of my car about stand-up than I did on stage, because like Barry hated to drive, so anytime he had to do a gig that was out of town, he would call Mike Clarke, and Mike would get me to drive Barry. And this is how I knew I had like made it in Boston. Is Sweeney called Mike Clarke and said, "Can you call Yannetti to drive me to this gig?" And Mike Clarke said, "No, Yannetti's funny now. He doesn't have to drive anymore."
You travel together to the gigs, right? Okay, who's driving? Whether it was me or you or Tony V. I remember one night I drove me and Tony V, Kenny Rogerson, and Lenny Clarke. That was the lineup.
Yeah, I know every liquor store in Cambridge. Oh, really? There's 2 we can go to, but we'll only do 1 because we don't have much film. Okay.
The ride was funnier than the show, You have 3 insane people and someone lights a joint.
We did the nut house. We did schools for the deaf. We did a deaf fucking school. And I'm going, what the fuck? Oh yeah, you're deaf.
You go on the road. Oh, we had a woman here last month and she did terrible, so we weren't going to have women again. You would never hear. We had a man here, last month, and he really bombed, so we're not having men anymore.
I remember working at the Naughty Pine in Quincy and paying for a beer on stage. And even the crowd was like, like, what a shithole,
They weren't actually comedy clubs, they were just, this one was a disco.
Where he ate it so hard. It was... God.
Who ate it?
Stephen Wright, but it was the only time ever. And we stood on a dance floor, and disco lights spun all around us.
That was a chain reaction of horror, of wrong information, of wrong. It was very wrong. Little things like the audience didn't know there was going to be comedy. And there was a disco and all of a sudden the music would just shut off. And a guy would bring a microphone out to the dance floor and then he would say, it's time for the comedy. They weren't listening and they were yelling weird shit.
When's the dancing start?
It was the only time I ever walked off stage. I threw the microphone.
He just put the mic down, and then he took it back and went, go fuck your mother.
Thinking back, it wasn't even really their fault. It was almost like putting a jet engine in someone's living room for no reason and expecting a standing ovation.
Oftentimes, the tougher things got on the road for us, the more we had only each other to rely on.
Well, it's good to be back at the theater. Take a shot. Huh? Take a shot. Right here, pal. There's your shot.
We ended up almost getting in a fist fight because they just didn't care. They were throwing beer at us. And I had money in my pocket, but Meanie needed the money, so he did 55 minutes.
Then people start leaving, and I go, the dean has sent me down to your school, so you'll get back to your dorm room and study.
And Kevin, he's so tenacious, he goes, I gotta tell you people something. I'm not leaving until I've ruined everyone's evening. I don't care. And they're fucking throwing beers and shit at him, and he's just stayed up. He needed the money. I said, Kevin, I will give you half the money I have. I have 175 in my pocket. You can have, nope, I'm gonna do this show. Fuck these people. He just wouldn't come down. In his fucking bow tie and his jacket, and these college kids just squirting beer at him.
No laughs at all. And I'm like, looking at my watch, here and there, trying to get a glimpse at it, going, I'm on 55. I got 5 more minutes.
They want us to go out the back door. And I said, we're not going. We're not the help. We're not going out the fucking back door. I said, if any one of these kids touches us, I'm gonna fucking waste him. And Kevin goes, I'm glad you're here. Because that's Kevin's doing. He goes, anybody can beat me up. You know that. So I'm glad you're here. And the guy goes, you're not gonna hit one of our students. I said, anybody lays a finger on either one of us and someone's going down, I don't care if we get killed. He goes, oh, all right. So they had like a ring of people around. We felt like fighters. We were being escorted out of the place. It was a nightmare.
Those 3 little dickheads on the side, I'm gonna fucking drop them like a bad fucking... Right on the side, there's 3 fucking little punk asses. I didn't do any show. It was a vicious show, and I had a good time doing it. And the kid, thanks for coming out. Don't be ashamed. You can do anything during my show. Walk right out, have fun. S is for the way this crowd really sucked. M is for the motherfuckers fucked. R, those rotten pricks. Oh, I'd like to kill them. B, I'd bust their fucking heads. Thank you.
So along with the absurd conditions we were all being thrown into, the presence of hecklers was growing increasingly common, not just in Boston, but all over the country.
Do they deserve any mercy? None whatsoever. They should be taken out, shot, killed, they're dragged around, beaten, humiliated, and then put back in the seat just as an example to the others.
Get on up here, motherfucker. Give me security.
I'm sorry, man. The guy fucking came at me. What do you think, folks?
No way.
Okay, sure.
That was unnecessary.
The workload was never ending, and the cash kept rolling in. But the more the national spotlight focused on us, the more tension and competition emerged.
We had a new young comedian from Boston who made his first appearance on national, I guess on not only national, but on any television at all. And he was a big hit, and we got calls and letters from agents and casting directors in Hollywood asking who he was. His name is Stephen Wright, and we asked him if he could come back before he went back to Boston and be with us again tonight.
I remember when I got back to the hotel saying, my God, this is the most important thing in their life right now. And a lot of hearts are going to be broken. And I'm sure that when Stephen did go on The Tonight Show and was so successful, they were all waiting for their turn.
Everybody just thought, okay, well now we're all going to get our shot because we're all good in our own way.
I was really mad at first because, I mean, it was my showcase. But Mike said, listen, why don't we just put everyone in and give everyone a fair shot?
Why were you mad then?
Because I wanted my shot. Right. I'm not going to lie to you, I wanted my shot. I mean, I was filling clubs for years. You know, everywhere I went, we sold out.
Stephen put us on the map. You know, thanks. That's all. I mean, that's more than we could have asked anyone to do. They're going to come back for more people. They certainly have.
Is there a golden ring that people in comedy grab for? I'm thinking of The Tonight Show or something like that. Is there? And all of you guys can jump in and answer this question.
I want The Tonight Show. I want it. I'm a man obsessed. I've got to have it. If you know Johnny Carson, if you know anyone who knows him, if you feel you can do anything for me, do it. I'm your best shot at getting invited to a Hollywood party. Come to my home, break my furniture. I don't care. I just want to be better off than most. That's all. I'm an honest person.
You're a desperate guy.
I am. I'm desperate. You know, I felt it was like a job, and I had the seniority, and I was being overlooked for the promotion. And that's basically what it was. And I think that it's in check now, because I mean, it's too late now, but I mean, I don't begrudge anyone their success, whereas 15 years ago, I thought it was my turn.
In the winter of 1983, David Mehegan of the Boston Globe wrote, "In the last 5 years, Boston has become what many in the entertainment business consider to be the hottest comedy center in the nation."
Everybody came to start looking for the rest of the Boston talent. And guys started to move here because they thought they were going to get work and make money and get seen. They didn't have to be in New York or LA.
And then there would be other comics who would be booked in by agencies because the clubs thought that maybe by having a national act that it would be a better show. And those guys would probably leave most weekends, you know, with their head in their hand, literally, because the comics at the time were so competitive. They didn't think that they created this.
They would get these guys that were, you know, considered a big deal someplace else. The whole event became putting Boston comics on in a competitive spirit to knock the shit out of these guys, and hence prove once again that, you know, Boston comics are the best.
These guys are killer acts, and I would never want to follow those guys, you know, and I wouldn't want to follow them at any point in my career.
It brought back some memories for me. I mean, you should feel bad, because I was in, you know, and it wasn't as dangerous as the movie, but it was pretty, I was there in '83, you know, so it had calmed down.
A prime example of this Boston hospitality was when New York comic Colin Quinn eagerly came to the infamous Knicks comedy stop and ended up paying the price of 2 cities at war for 75 years.
I was just so cocky because I couldn't wait to get to Boston. Like, I had it in the back of my mind that, you know what, this is gonna be like my go-to city. I'm gonna be like big like Jerry Lewis was in France. That's what I thought I would be in Boston, because I was like Irish, and my material had a lot of Irish Catholicism. So then the week starts, everyone's like, oh, you gotta be careful when you go to Knicks. You go to Knicks, the crowd will turn on you. They'll blow you away. Go to Knicks, you get your bomb. They hate New Yorkers.
Knicks crowds it was animalistic, you know, they were like, you know, they'd come in from Revere and they'd get in those red booths and they'd just be, you know, Irish and Italian guys, and just like, we entertain the shit out of it.
The whole crowd is green windbreakers. Chances on there playing guitar, killing.
Every breath you take, every move you make.
He goes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Now from New York, Colin Quinn. And I look out and it's like just a sea of fucking red hair and fat fucking faces looking at me. So I go, I'll tell you, it's crazy to be here in Boston. Fuck New York. Well, sir, there's no reason for that. I really haven't said anything.
Within a minute, it was the accent was, you could see people like, this guy's from New York.
Pretty soon it's like a whole crowd and you just feel like it's one of those things where you just feel the whole crowd, ah! You hear roars all over the place. You know when it really goes bad and you hear that roar where everybody just wants to kick your ass?
Oh, I was there. You were there? I was there. I was with him. He was staying at my house.
Like I always thought like Massachusetts was like the Kennedys or something. It's like fucking maniacs like this. Fuck you! You're gonna kick the piss out of you when you get off that stage. I'm like, ah, fuck you. Meanwhile, I don't realize there's no back entrance.
And it was just like, uh-oh. It was like one of those things, like, get Mike, you know, get Mike. Joe, hey.
And then Joe Yannetti, who feels like he's my guardian in Boston, he brought me up there. And he takes the mic and he goes, folks, I'm from Eastie. And the crowd's like, okay, he's from Eastie. We respect that. He's like scolding the crowd. You're insulting him. He's up here as a visitor from New York, and now I'm gonna escort him off stage. Nobody is to touch him, and him and like 3 bouncers have to escort me, and I just go off the side to the kitchen. They just take me to the kitchen and bounce like, come on, like they're mad at me, you know, come on, like it's my fucking fault, you know. And I just have to stay in the kitchen for like an hour until the whole crowd's gone. Until they made sure they called up each crowd member at home to make sure they got home before they let me out. And then the next night I had to go back, of course, Saturdays, there's free shows coming up. And I'm sitting up there and it's going fine, the first show. And I'm just like, you know, because I was traumatized by that night. So I'm just doing like 10 minutes, and there's these 3 guys smiling at me up front, and about halfway into it, one of them goes, we were here last night.
While it was typical for an outsider to have a hard time in Boston, when a very young transplant came along and was almost immediately discovered, it really stirred things up.
I saw Twinkies have a shelf life of 20 years. I saw it in the news. It's because of all the chemicals and preservatives that they put in a Twinkie. They have a shelf life of 20 years. I was wondering if you ate a Twinkie that was 20 years and 1 day old, would you go, ugh? Does this taste funny to you?
I was 20 by the time I got on Letterman. And folks were pretty upset about that. They all assumed that they would be successful before myself.
That's natural, though, man, because it's like baseball or you know, if we're all playing minor league baseball or, you know, AAA or whatever, you know what I mean? If you look at it that way, it's like, you know, well, this guy's hitting 350, man. He's going to go next, right? And so that's true. Yeah. It is true. I remember that. I remember people a lot. I think some of the older guys were kind of bitter about Bobcat because he was here so brief. It was so brief.
I'm pretty much every parent's dream date. Hello, is your daughter home?
Bobby Goldthwait got the Letterman show and the shit hit the fan. Because I remember hearing that it wasn't his turn. People's attitudes changed. People stopped telling you how you could make your set better. It became more competitive, and it got ugly.
Boston's just such an angry fucking city, too, you know, that it's funny. They're just into, like, fucking how miserable everyone is and how miserable they are, and they're just looking to see how somebody's just a fucking prick everywhere they go. Look at that asshole, you know, he's a fucking scumbag. Like they're trying to say he's a miserable bear. I mean, that's why it's funny. Because it's miserable Irish fucks. That's why.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a nice big round of applause, welcome the fabulous and lovely Mr. Lenny Clarke. Oh.
We had a disagreement on how things were run, and it was simply financial.
Paul Barkley, next guy.
The deal was the connection, and Lenny would take half the door.
50-50. And I said, okay. So you're talking to a guy who was not real bright, because I would just take the money and I wouldn't count it. You know, I did it by weight. Yeah, that feels about right. And we do, you know, do a lot of drugs and drinking and tipping and throwing money around.
And what ended up would happen is out of the 200 seats a night per show, Lenny would have about 85 or 90 guests.
Mike did come to see me one night. He said, how much you getting? And I said, I don't know. Here he counted up. He goes, it's light. I go, what do you mean it's light? He said, it's light. He goes, I don't want to start any trouble, but they're screwing you.
You know, the other night would be 400 people, and he'd say, okay, so I get 200 times 5. He'd say, no, you get 120. You know, your 80 guests are yours. And that just became a big argument.
So I grabbed him, and I grabbed him by the throat and I dragged him through the crowd into the little back room and out. And I threw him down on the floor and I stood on his neck and I counted him up. And he had screwed me by like about $2 grand. So I just took what was mine, took the rest and threw it in his face and said, don't ever try to fuck me again like that. I should kill you. And I walked out.
That was 15, 17 years ago. It never resolved. Maybe that's Irish. We're both, you know, the Irish Alzheimer's. Forget everything but the grudge.
As internal conflict grew more and more, so did the need to stand out one way or another.
It was kind of a no-holds-barred scene. I recall Kevin Meaney, used to be down at a club called Stitches, and he'd have his man in the street routine. He'd take a camera out to Commonwealth Avenue and stop cars.
We're gonna see if we can stop any traffic and find out any passers-by here.
What I found interesting was, that it was the whole live aspect of it, where people are sitting in a theater or in a nightclub, and they watch somebody that's just outside the door with a live camera harassing people. You couldn't hear them laughing, you were just kind of hoping they would be.
But here's a bus. Here's a goddamn bus. We're gonna stop it. You wanna stop the bus with us?
I want you to smoke this with me.
Smoke what? Look at this, he's selling packs. No, I don't want to smoke pot. But get stupid and have fun. Here comes the bus. He's gonna run right into me. Hi, how are you? Beautiful bus, Boston University. Hi, can we come in for a second? Are you folks in a big rush? How's the ride so far tonight? This is live.
What channel?
This is for Channel 4.
Could it be that I would love you one day, baby, and you say...
Thank you, we have to leave, but you've been wonderful. And here's a car right over here. They're on the sidewalk, and what are you guys doing out on the sidewalk?
I was going to try to do some comedy here at this place. They have comedy here, right?
You want to come in with me? Well, fuck the train. Let's go in and get out of your car. Back it up. All right, there's a policeman there. I don't think there's going to be a problem because I do have the camera. There is a policeman over here. I will take care of it. Don't worry about a thing. Good evening, officer. How are you? Sorry, we did. Well, it's a brand new car, and I want to see what kind of an engine it had in it. Apparently, but I'm sorry. No, this isn't a joke. I know it's not, and I don't want to get you upset, because you're an awfully nice fella. We missed the train. We've had some good times out here. It's a brand new car right here. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a Pontiac, ladies and gentlemen. It's a new Fiero. It's a fine piece of machinery.
At this time, there was a cocaine epidemic sweeping the nation. So who better to fall victim than a bunch of crazed comics with pockets full of cash, looking to sustain the elusive high that live performing provided.
We used to have this little back room at the Comedy Connection, and with some whiteout, took some whiteout, and I painted 2 little lines. So it looked like 2 lines of blow on the TV. So they were just permanently there. And I would just sit and watch everybody's reaction when they would come in, because everyone would come in and go, hey, how you? And then immediately look like, oh, somebody left 2 lines out, and you could see the twitching starting,
So I quit doing coke. I'm broke now.
You're doing drugs? What kind are you on?
Cocaine, you want some?
No thanks, but nice mustache coming in.
I'm smoking a cigarette and someone will come up and dump cocaine on me. Some guy I've never seen, put it on my hand. There you go. What do you presume? Because I'm in show business, I want to do felonies with complete strangers? I'm not going to do cocaine with you, even if I do cocaine, and I don't do cocaine. I hated that stuff.
Some comics ended up working for free because, they had a coke habit.
You could pick how you want to get paid. You can get paid in all money. You get paid in all blow. You get paid half money, half blow.
Comedians love dope, okay? You can put that on the air over fucking BU.
I remember I was dating a coke dealer while I was living with someone else, and she bought me a pair of pants, 29-inch waist. I went, oh, man! I thought it was looking good, Oh, look at that Ripley stomach. It was digesting itself.
I was doing coke on stage, and I smoked a joint, and this is a full house. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is just done coke. It's not real. And it was fucking real.
But he would actually smoke a joint, and he was a prick. He goes, you know how it is, just one joint, 200 people, and he'd fucking puff the thing. And now the people in the front realize it is a real joint.
You know, Lenny's like, hey, let's see, let's push it to the envelope, right? And you kind of go, what the fuck? We could get shut down for this. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Comedian John Belushi was found dead this morning in Hollywood, California from an apparent drug overdose. Authorities arrived on the scene.
When Belushi died, you know, that was like a wake-up call to everybody, and some people, myself included, heard the wake-up call but chose not to listen, and other people did.
Many of us should be dead. Myself, probably more than the others, because I would run longer. 3, 4, 5 days, 21 days, wide awake, doing blow.
You know, you go on sometimes too high, you know, piss off club owners, you can piss off audience members, piss off other comics, you're late for gigs. It screws up your act, it screws up, you know, friendships, you say things you don't mean.
You know, Mike would say, I remember him coming in one night and saying to me, you know, they're not laughing with you anymore, they're laughing at you. And it really moved me, and I said that, well, have I let you down? He goes, yeah, you're letting a lot of people down, you know, and he goes, you know, I want to be proud of you, and I'm not proud of you the way you are right now.
You know, when I should have been writing and should have been working on my career, I was too busy snorting coke and having a good time. And now I'm paying for it.
After miraculously surviving through this drug-soaked haze, we thought our prayers had been answered. Suddenly, more opportunities for national recognition as cable television was exploding.
And I think now it's not so good. I think 5 years ago it was really great. And now what's happened is you really can't fail any place because there's so much competition and so much pressure now. You see all the shows on television they have. You can't do a bad set on one of those shows. If you do, it's played for 3 and 4 years of a buyout and you're sunk.
Then when there got to be more channels on one's television, there was this awful feeling that you didn't even want to turn your television on and flip towards a program that you'd actually enjoy watching, because even while you flipped, you were going to have to pass at least 10 guys standing in front of a brick wall telling jokes.
It was just such a small world. And then it became a lucrative career option. Like in high school, they could have had a booth set up at that time. Like, do you want to be a comedian?
When everybody became a stand-up comic, or it seemed that way, or wanted to become a stand-up comic, they were all copying each other, and there were no fresh voices.
And hence you had so many people that just had no business being a comedian. They were just aping what they felt stand-up comedians looked like and sounded like and talked like.
And so, you know, it was kind of a dime a dozen at a certain point, and it lost a lot of its specialness. And karaoke came along.
We were unprepared. And we had 78 to 84, 85 of just absolute, everything you touched turned to gold. Every club that opened was successful. Every night was fantastic. It was a great time. And suddenly, it just ended. Ended.
There was no show business there.
We started the National Hooky Association.
Comedy has become a thriving business.
Comics would come here to see what the Boston Legend was all about.
Not a lot of comedians don't come out of Boston.
These guys are killer acts.
Fuck New York! I wanted my shot.
People's attitudes changed.
I hit him and he went down.
We lost the ding-o because of cocaine.
Many of us should be dead.
We should put a truck bomb in front of that place and let it blow up.
That was a golden era that we're not going to see again.
So say goodbye for now. It'll all be okay somehow. So say goodbye for now. It'll all be okay somehow.
The fucking ding-ho was the gate to hell. It was Sodom and Gomorrah with a fucking $5 cover.
As I mentioned earlier, a few months into making this film, we learned Barry Crimmins got sick and needed money for insurance, so Jimmy Tingle organized a benefit, a big comedy concert scheduled on the 20th anniversary of the Ding Ho.
The Ding Ho was such a special place that it just brought all kinds of people from all over to go and laugh together and enjoy the moment. And we're all back to redo that tonight.
So many of us came back, put any lingering differences aside, and reunited one more time to help a friend and put on a show.
Wow, this is like old days without the 8 ball.
To loosely paraphrase an old chestnut, if you remember being at the Ding Ho, you really weren't there.
So I got off the plane and I forgot to undo my seatbelt, and I'm pulling the plane through the turn. And the wings are knocking people over. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice.
For starters, please excuse my appearance this evening, but this is what I look like.
Let me tell you what it was like. It was fucking wild. There was booze, there was broads, there was sex. How about those Moose sisters we all used to fuck? Are they here tonight? Oh, the 2 sisters, they were great. They didn't give a fuck about anything. I love those kids. Remember the shit we do to them, Marty? I tell you.
And some of these guys, I swear, I haven't seen them for 10, 12 years. I gotta be honest, I wanted people to look like shit. I gotta be honest. And everybody's like, ooh, yeah, bite me. Anyway, so.
Marty, I haven't seen you in, 15 years? You still got the same fucking shirt on.
The owner was a Chinese man who didn't speak any English, didn't understand any English. He used to watch the acts. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Most of these guys really partied hard and they really pulled their life together, and they're not as funny sober. You know that? They're a lot funnier when they got fucked up, you know? And I haven't got fucked up in 18 years, and I'm going off the wagon, and I'd like to see the rest of you pussies meet my challenge.
You know, my high school reunion is this year, and I ain't going. Because this is it. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Jolene came around this time last year. He said, I got myself a great idea. I'm gonna build a Chinese restaurant right here in Edmund Square, you know. Now it's bad enough he picked a cowboy saloon and he filled the jukebox full of crummy tunes, but why'd he have to go and have to name the place Ding Ho? Everybody ding ho. A 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 ding ho. Now I tell my friends about where I work. Say gotta be shitting me, you stupid jerks, and I bring them round just to show them so. They say the show's real good and the food's the same, but you gotta do something about that name. I tell ya, it's embarrassing working at a place called the Ding Ho. Everybody ding ho! Ding ho! Ding ho! Ding ho! Ding ho! Ding ho!
It was, you know, one of the greatest experiences of my life. And it was all about, you know, magnificent friendships and wonderful artistry. I mean, and we loved each other. I mean, I love those guys. And to think about what we have been together collectively, and then what we've all gone off and done individually, and just to think that it all started, you know, for me, because somebody picked me up hitchhiking that was heading to New England instead of New York. You know, the I Ching of life is you know, pretty amazing.
You know, the carrot for me was never fame. You know what I mean? The carrot for me was to be the best comic I could be. You know, I always took that approach, that if I was doing good work on stage, or what I considered good work on stage, then, you know, you would achieve a modicum of success anyway.
I wrote a letter to Peter LaSalle saying I think what you did was the right thing to do, obviously, because picking him as a representative of Boston, you made the whole town proud. That was the most fun of my life. The ding hole days, we were like rock stars.
When you get older, you can notice things while they're happening, that this is special more while it's actually happening, or maybe a minute later. But when you're in your 20s, you don't know. Like, and that time, looking back, is incredible.
After making this film, I've realized that this scene was never about vanity, becoming a star, or making money. It was simply about the pure desire and satisfaction of making people laugh. So looking back now, I am real grateful that such a big part of my life turned out to be a joke.
Thank you, Boston. Thank you, Ding Hole alumni.
I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you a story about my town. I'm gonna tell you a big bad story, baby. A story about my town. Yeah, we're down by the river, down by the banks of the river Charles. That's what's happening, baby. Yeah, well, that's where you find me. Along with lovers, muggers, and thieves. Oh, but they're cool people. Well, I love that dirty water. Yeah, oh, Boston, you're my home. You're my number one. Girls, straight and women have to be here by 12 o'clock. And that's just too bad. Well, I'm wishing and hoping that for just once those doors were locked. I like to have time for my baby to walk around. Well, that dirty water. Ooh, Boston, you're my home. You're my home, sweet home. Well, that dirty water. Ooh, Boston, you're my home. You're my home, sweet home. Cause I love that dirty water. Boston, you're my home. You're my number one, Boston. Love that dirty water. I love it. Love it, baby. Love Boston. Ooh, you ever hear the stranger? Yeah, I'm a man. I'm a man. Ooh, I love the dirty water. I love Boston. I love Boston,
I'm the minority in comedy in Boston. Irish, Jews, blacks, Italians. That's the majority of the comedians. You ready for me? Russian father, German mother. Shitload of laughs at my house.
We'd just like to take you to a party at MIT. Big party school.
It's a great party, huh?
Yeah, it's a great party.
Because you have to drive into traffic here. That's going to piss anybody off, huh? Driving in traffic, I don't care who you are, you're going to be pissed off. You could be the nicest guy in the world. Maybe on a blind date, trying to show her how thoughtful you are. Oh, you look so special. I'm so excited. It's our first date, and I hope we have many more. And because you're so special, I'm gonna take you to my favorite restaurant. Yeah, 'cause it's special just like you. And it's not far from here, nah, it's just down the road a piece. But we should be there as soon as fuckhead gets out of the way! Oh, look at this asshole! You know, this asshole wouldn't be here if it wasn't for fuckhead!
And I still gamble. I try not to neglect any of my bad vices. And I go down to Foxwoods. I have my own teepee. I go down there quite a bit. And I usually have someone else drive, and I have a couple of cocktails on the way. They have the most facetious signs down there. Bet with your head, not over it. You know, so I'm pushing my chips in like this. You know, have you seen these signs? If you have a gambling problem, I'm going, who else would be in the room? If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So I called them up. I said, look, I got an ace and a 6, and the dealer has a 7.
Just cruise in here for a sec. Come on in. Follow me in here. Hi, girls. How are you? How are you? How you doing? All right. Apparently there's some girls back here. Come on back. I don't know. Hi. How are you? Can you open the door, please? Hi. How are you? Hey, they don't want to talk to us, but.